Welcome to the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project series, Let's Talk About It. Today, we will be talking to noted attorney Xavier Donaldson regarding judicial appointments and the importance of your vote. Thank you, Xavier Donaldson. He's here with us from Donaldson and Chillis Law Firm
That's
in
correct.
New York.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Xavier R. Donaldson. I'm one of the partners, the founding partners at Donaldson and Chillis Law Firm located in Harlem, New York. We've been together now for 20 years. I've been practicing law for 25 or 26 years. My primary area of practice is federal and state litigation, primarily federal criminal litigation, white collar criminal matters, federal death penalty matters, Hobbs Act robberies, bank fraud, welfare fraud, just about any type of federal criminal case. I've done those in practice in the district court as well as the appellate court. I also represent corporations and not-for-profit organizations who are being investigated by the federal government. I represent entertainers, and I do some crisis management. And I also am a law professor at Brooklyn Law School. So thank you for having me. Yeah, and I'm a graduate of St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Always got to put that on. And Howard University School of Law.
All
Got to
right.
put that on too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so today we're here, we're going to kind of touch on the importance of the presidential judicial appointments. So
Right.
I'm going to kind of just give you the floor and, whatever you feel is, we should know, I would love for you to share.
Fantastic. This is kind of close to my heart because in addition to what I said I do, I also try to play a major role or some kind of role in the appointment or election of judges in New York City and New York State, federal and state. Of course, federal judges are appointed, but we'll get to that in a second, or most of them are appointed. So I try to play a role, some kind of role, in what judges get placed on the bench or who gets placed on the bench, because I personally think that that's probably the most important job we have in society. And a lot of people don't realize that because they're not, you really don't see judges every day. You don't talk to them. Society as a whole doesn't really, we don't hang around with judges. We don't see them. We don't talk to them about their jobs. And that's probably because, we want to keep them isolated or away from society, so we won't feel like they're being in any way, shape, or form, prejudiced or doing something that they shouldn't be doing because of a friend or a family member or a corporation or whatever the case may be. So we really just don't, society just really, we don't have this personal attachment to judges. But judges, I think, play probably the most important role, or one of the most important roles in our society. And when we're talking about federal judges, the ones that are appointed, they play a larger than life role in our society. And I've been saying since 2000, well, first when President Obama was elected or campaigning, I was saying it a little bit back then. But in 2015, my principal argument for why we should vote for a certain person and not for another person was I made sure I put it on social media, everywhere I can put it. My phrase was, it's all about the judges. And I've been saying that for the last 4 or 5 years. Since 2015, I think I said it when certain people just started running for election. I'm like, listen, folks, it's all about the judges. I don't care what else you're thinking about. I don't care what particular, ideology you have. I don't care what, agenda you have. This election, and now the election coming up, is all about the judges. And that's the simplest way I can put it. Now I can expand on that, which is what I want to do today. But it really is all about the judges. The senators know it. The Congress people know it. The presidents know it. The lobbyists know it. Everybody knows it except the people voting. And that's problematic for me. So when we're talking about federal judges, why it's important is because the president gets to appoint federal judges. And for most of us that don't know this, or some people that don't know this, or whoever's listening, federal judges are appointed and they keep those jobs for life. Forever. There's no get fired. There's no, we don't like your decision, so we're going to kick you out. There's no run again. No, federal judges are here for life. And whatever they brought to the bench, that means they're going to keep at that bench for life. And so it becomes really important when you start putting on people on the bench, or people start appointing judges for the bench that are 35 and 36 years old. So now that means that these particular people that are 36 years old, and we know most people live to be 75, 80 years old nowadays, they're going to be on that federal bench for 45, 50 years. That means not just our life, but our children's life and our grandchildren's life. So that's important, because federal judges, we want to tell people that the statutes and senators and Congress people, they make laws and draft the laws, but federal judges actually are the ones that make the policy. They're the ones that interpret the laws and decide which is legal, which is not. And really what they say is the law going forward. So you want to vote for someone that's going to appoint people, that's going to make the laws that's going to last for 30, 40, 50 years, that are hopefully not going to be detrimental to society as a whole and to individuals personally. That's what's at stake right now. And I think that's probably more important than anything else I could think of, because these federal judges really are going to make decisions that are going to affect my life, my child's life, and my grandchild's life. That means your life, your child's life, and your grandchild's life. These are the people that the president gets to put on the bench. Now, I want you all to ask me some questions, but that's where I want to start. That's the introductory part. I want to break it down like that, and then keep breaking it down. That the reason why federal judges are so important, the reason why it's important that we know that, is because the person that's in as president gets to appoint people for life. And these people are going to be making decisions that's going to affect your life for the next 40 years. And to really bring it home, federal judges outlast presidents, they outlast senators, they outlast Congress people. So they are the ones that are being put there because somebody knows that they need certain people in certain positions far beyond President Trump, and far beyond Senator McConnell, and far beyond any other senators or Congress people, whatever. These judges will still be there. And so that's why it's important that you get the right person as president to ensure that the legacy going forward is not just absolutely horrific, and it can be. So that's why I think it's important. And please feel free to jump and ask questions, but I can keep going if you like.
Well, as far as our current president, he has appointed quite a number of judges.
Right.
Is that an abnormal number considering other presidents, or is that on track?
No. President Trump is, and wow, you tricked me. That's the first time I've said the word president and Trump in the same sentence. I made a goal of mine since 2015 not to say those two words together, and you tricked me. I owe you for that. Yes, the person in the big White House right now has exceeded just about any president in recent history as far as appointing federal judges. And we need to understand something. And I like reading about the Constitution. I don't dare say I'm a constitutional scholar like some other person, my colleagues are, but I'm very vested and interested in it. And, I had to do some research because I wanted to be right in what I'm saying. He has, so far he has appointed 2 Supreme Court judges, which is kind of par on par for 4 years. Sometimes presidents get lucky, they can appoint 2, 3, 4, whatever the term is, but he's appointed 2. And that was significant because, President Obama, before he left office, was trying to appoint one, and the Republican-controlled Senate made sure that didn't happen, specifically so that they can get the next president, hoping that that president was going to be Republican, to then appoint a Supreme Court judge. Why again? because the Republican Senate and Republicans and everyone knows that Supreme Court judges are supremely important. They are like super important, again, because they outlast presidents. They outlast senators. You have some Supreme Court justices who've been sitting on the Supreme Court for 20, 30, 40 years, way beyond how long a president can last, and way beyond most senators, and clearly beyond most Congress people. So that's why that was important. Mr. Trump has also appointed almost 200 federal judges in 4 years, almost 200. That's incredible, honestly. And if he gets reelected, he's going to try to do another 200. So he'll be at 400 or more in 8 years. That's way beyond President Obama and anybody else. But more importantly, most importantly, he has appointed 54, at this point, I think 54 appellate federal judges. That's an insane number, honestly, because in 3 years or 3.5 years, he's appointed 54. I think President Obama in 8 years did 40 or something like that, appellate judges. I think no one has come close to 54 except President Jimmy Carter back in whenever that was. Other than that, no one has even come close to that. So his job when he got elected, in my opinion, was to ensure that he appoint as many federal judges as he could that would do the bidding, and I don't want to say do the bidding because it sounds really bad, but that would rule or interpret the law in a way that Republicans thought the law should be interpreted. And I'm saying this hoping that once you become a federal judge, you read the law and do it fairly. But I think it would be unrealistic to believe that political views don't come into play when people are being appointed. It just will be, I think, naive to not think that. So he has appointed almost 200 judges so far, but more importantly, he's appointed 54 appellate judges. And those are the judges that review the district court judges. So, and he did that's on purpose. So that's the part that we need to understand why it's important, because these federal appellate judges are the ones that actually review the law. They actually determine what's legal and what's not. They set the policy and they pretty much set the law. And so it's very important. Really, really important.
Explain that in basic terms for the young voter, the young African-American voter, why it's important that, we understand that these appointments are, a lifetime appointment, and how it affects just the average person, considering how we view our young people and just, our race in general, how we're treated by the law.
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question, because a lot of people, when they voted last 4 years ago, they had this false belief that the president couldn't affect them individually, and they couldn't affect them personally. It's just the president, nothing's going to happen to them. And my response to them was always, it's all about the judges. And what Mr. Donaldson and Xavier, that's not going to affect me, yada, yada. Well, it does. And it does every day, honestly. And I actually wrote down a list. So abortion access. Abortion access. Let's just talk about abortions. Federal law says whatever it says, and each state makes up their own law sometimes about who can get an abortion and when. Then what happens is the federal courts will come in and determine whether or not that law is legal or not. And so what people don't understand is the federal judges are the ones that make those determinations. These federal judges are in fact appointed by the president. If you have a president who does not believe in abortion or abortion rights, then he is clearly going to appoint people who believes as he believes. So what that means then is that you're going to have a lot of federal judges who are going to be on the bench who believe as the president believes, which is or may be that abortion is or should be illegal. I don't believe for a second that Roe v. Wade, the abortion case from 1972, or any of the other cases that giving women the right to choose will last. I think the the courts are being stacked, and I mean stacked by appointments are being made specifically to address certain prior Supreme Court cases that benefited or that helped women's rights, abortion rights being one of them. There are lots of federal judges now being appointed who specifically do not believe in the woman's right to choose. And when those cases come before them, they are going to rule that way. So if you in particular areas of the country where a federal judge has been appointed, or more importantly, an appellate judge has been appointed, and that judge has already said before they got appointed that they don't believe in abortion rights, or they believe that the state has a right to do whatever regarding abortions, then understand that your rights to an abortion, your woman's rights, will be taken away. There's no doubt about that. And I know some people really believe that, well, they can't do that. It's the law right now. They just can't change the law. Well, that's the problem. And that's what I want people to understand. They can change the law. They do change the law all the time. It wasn't that long ago that, we couldn't sit in the same seats on the same classroom with white folk. Federal judges had to change that law. So, we have to come to grips with the fact that we have, not my opinion, we have become complacent in our comfort. We really believe that things can't happen anymore because it happened so long ago. And I always remind people, it wasn't that long ago. And the people that wrote these laws and the judges that, let some of these laws continue were considered smart people, were considered really smart people. And so, they are putting judges back on these benches who thought like those judges thought back in 1950, 1960, and 1940. I mean, that Make America Great Again, I mean, that's not a secret. I mean, no one's hiding it from you. They're telling you. So that's just one issue. Gun access laws. I mean, however you feel about the Second Amendment, for, against, whatever, judges are going to determine what rights you have related to the Second Amendment. They're going to be the ones to interpret what the Second Amendment means and how it can be either restricted, whatever, they're going to be the ones to determine that. And so if you have a judge who's appointed by a particular president and that president believes a certain thing about the Second Amendment, then understand that the judges are going to interpret the Second Amendment a different way that might be different than the way you want it to be. Climate change. I mean, you'd have to be kind of crazy to not believe in the science. But there are some judges that actually believe that science is wrong, or there's no science and there's no such thing as climate change. So they're going to interpret laws and say, well, no, there's nothing to do with climate change. Go out there and get a broom and sweep up over there and the fires won't happen in California. That's your responsibility, California. So judges are going to do that, and that's going to affect you personally. Voting rights. Voting rights. Federal judges determine just about who can vote, who can't vote. Honestly, let's just be really as basic as we can. Federal judges make that determination. You have laws that say X, Y, Z, but federal judges interpret those laws to say X, Y, and Z. So whoever's in office will put judges in place that they think are going to interpret the voting rights laws the way they want them to be interpreted. So if you believe that President Trump is interpreting voting rights properly, then vote for him because he's going to put judges in there that's going to do that. If you don't, then understand that vote him out so somebody else can put judges in there who think that people should vote and be able to vote. That's the way this works. Healthcare. The man first came to office. He said in 3 weeks he's getting rid of healthcare. He couldn't do it. The judges have to do it. So what does he do? He puts judges on the bench that thinks the way he does to get rid of Obamacare. So, the list goes on. Stop and frisk. A federal judge had to stop and frisk. If it wasn't for that federal judge in New York City, Judge Shinlin, stop and frisk would still be legal and still going on. She said it was illegal. She said it violated people's rights. Therefore, 195,000 people per year stopped getting stopped like that. Before she said that, 195,000 people were getting stopped on a regular basis, and it was legal. So do federal judges affect you personally? Absolutely. God forbid if Judge Shilling hadn't said that, there'll be a whole lot more Black and brown people in New York City being stopped on a regular basis for no reason at all. So, these are the things that play into this. It's all about the judges. It's all about the judges. And lastly, there's a lot more sexual harassment, sexual orientation, whether you can get married, who can get benefits, immigration laws, whether felons can vote or not. There was just a case in Florida that said that felons can't vote even when they get out of jail unless they pay all their fines, etc. Now, we all know that's like a poll tax. They can't pay it, but they said, sorry, you can't vote. Guess who made that ruling? 6 people appointed by, guess who? This current president. Wow. It's not, in my opinion, in my mind, it's not rocket science, but what it is that certain people don't have the information. And our politicians, our presidents, or whoever know that certain people don't have the information, and they keep that information from you so that you don't know how to vote. So I'll keep saying until the cows come home, it's all about the judges.
So that's the basis for my question. We tend to not be educated voters. So we have, we always say, go vote, and that equates to go vote for the president. But all of these other elections are just as important as you just talked about, all about the judges. How can we get information into the hands of voters, are there specific websites? And sometimes people are just not going to do the work. Let's be realistic about it. So are there very simple things that we can put in the hands of voters to help them be more informed as it relates to how to pick the right judges, or, how to pick the right people in general?
I don't know. I think that we have to, I'm a big fan of just simplicity. I really am. Even when I'm doing trials, I can be doing the most complex trial you can think of. I could be representing someone charged with the death penalty or the biggest insider trader trial in America. I firmly believe in breaking things down to its simplest points, because people like getting things in simple forms. It's easier to digest. All this gobbledygook, complicated, complex talking stuff, that's not good for people. I want you to tell me what this means so that my 10-year-old can understand it. That's what I want you to do. And so for me, at least, for understanding that these little nuances, and it's called all about the judges, a nuance. These little nuances need to be given to the masses, just like social media is. It needs to be, I hope I'm not going to insult anybody, but we don't have a good marketing campaign. We just don't, whoever's marketing for the Democrats or whoever you're voting for, they just don't know what the hell they're doing. Because, that should be one of the first things sent out in like a little PowerPoint thing. You can give out the little cards that says, federal judges affect stop and frisk, yada, 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 abortion rights, health care, etc. This person votes for this particular politician, believes in this, is going to appoint these judges, and just lay it out. And it could be as simple as that, so that people, it's a quick understanding of it. Okay, whoa. And then people will stop, whoa. You're going to appoint that person, and that person believes in this, and then that person can do that? Yes. Oh, no, bro, I can't vote for you. You're crazy. That can't happen. And it has to be as simple as that. Like, for example, there's an example I have where this is a quote from a judge. He was running for judge. He says, "I intend to build such a fiercely conservative record on the Texas State Supreme Court that I will be unconfirmable for any future federal judicial post, and proudly so." So that's what this person in Texas who's running for a Texas State Supreme Court position, he wrote that. He said that out loud to his constituents in public, so everybody can hear it 10 years ago. He was going to be fiercely conservative, so conservative that nobody would dare try to confirm him for any federal district court. He said that 10 years ago. Guess what happened this year? He was appointed to the federal court in Texas and confirmed by the Senate. Now, how is that possible? How is that even, that shouldn't even be conceivable, that a person can be so arrogant to say, I'm going to be so conservative and I'm anti-abortion, I'm anti-this, I'm anti-school vouchers, I'm anti-education. I am a conservative. I am a staunch, almost said segregationist conservative, to the point where no one's going to confirm me for federal court. And then 10 years later, your president gets up here and says, you know what, I think I want to appoint you for a federal judgeship in Texas, in the Texas area. And then the Senate, all of them, the Republicans said, good, he should be a federal judge for life. So now we have this man as a federal judge for life in that area. I mean, things like that. So and that's like a hidden thing. That's like a hidden secret, like a small thing. Now, that, in my opinion, should be proudly placed in every location in Texas, Arizona, and every place else. This is who President Trump is making life federal judges to make decisions on cases involving things that affect your daily life. A person who said he's going to be unconfirmable and he's going to be fiercely conservative, and that's all he's going to do. And knowing that Trump appointed him and those senators approved him. I mean, that's the kind of thing we should put in the hands of voters. Things like that, so that they can see it, and it's not laced or full of, political jargon. It's just simple language that regular people understand. That's what you need to put in their hands. Nothing more, nothing less. Educate the electorate with simple, concise, succinct statements of exactly what happened and what didn't. And that's how you get voters to vote.
I'm just wondering, with the election coming up and all the conversation around, is it going to be a fair election? Do you know what's being done by who's besides the ACLU, but just lawyers in general, to ensure that people's voting rights won't be infringed upon, that if the election is close, that there'll be people in place to ensure that all of ballots will be counted that should be counted?
Well, I think that the Democratic Party, I mean, both parties, but the Democratic Party right now, I think, are trying to anticipate problems. So like in Iowa, for example, I recently heard that they're spending money now, and I think it's a good idea. They're hiring lawyers in anticipation of there being a problem after the election so they can make it run quickly. So they're investigating and ensuring that everything is done smoothly. But just in case something happens, they have lawyers and people in place from day one after the election to make sure everything is done right. And I think that's what you have to do. And so besides ACLU and everyone else who's trying to get involved, I think there are a lot of individual groups and individual states that are, hearing the call that, listen, anticipate. Well, you don't have to anticipate now. I mean, it's no longer a secret what's going to happen. I mean, and I'm Republican or Democrat, but what's happening right now is just wrong. So Mr. Trump is preparing right now to delegitimize the election. And that's what he's doing. He's just putting out he's saying these things right now that's never been said before, basically to say that if he loses or when he loses, that he couldn't have lost except for fraud. And so when he's saying that now, so that when he does lose, all his people, his voters, his supporters will automatically say, fraud, we're not going for it. This is a fake election, or whatever the case is, whatever you're going to say. And then they're going to start doing all these legal challenges. Listen to me. That's why it's all about the judges, because he's putting judges in the appellate division right now that will rule for him and them when they lose, to say that, no, this didn't happen properly, recount the ballots or do whatever you have to do. And, again, we're being complacent, and I don't know why we are, but we're being complacent. The judges that are being appointed are not being bashful about what they're going to do or what position they're going to hold. And I'll give you some examples of that. There's a judge in DC, judge, I think her name is Judge Rayal. She's on the appellate division, recently appointed. And, you would think that if you were recently appointed or close to the president, you wouldn't want to hear, or you would recuse yourself from cases involving the president. No, 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 no. That's not what they're doing. They are literally saying, no, 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 I'm okay. I can hear the case too. So, I mean, Judge Rayal, and I don't know her. I'm not saying she's a bad person, but in the recent case regarding General Flynn, where this issue came up about whether or not the prosecutors can dismiss the case after he's pled guilty and said he lied twice, and he's pled guilty, and in the normal course, and I've been doing federal criminal law for 21 years now. In the normal course, when that happens, it happens. Person pleads guilty, gets sentenced, fine. We have never seen a situation where the prosecutor or the attorney general has come down and said, well, let me review that. It's the president's friend. He's taking his plea back. He really wasn't guilty. We're going to dismiss the indictment and let him go. That doesn't happen. That's crazy. Who does that? But they did that. And then Justice Rao, a recent presidential appointee, stepped into the case and said, you know what? You're right. The federal district court judge can't hear it. This case should be dismissed. General Flynn should be free to go. And everyone's like, lady, that just screams of conflict of interest. He just appointed you. No one else, the whole Democratic side said no because of your conservative rulings and because your ties to the president. Everyone said you shouldn't be a judge, but the Senate put you in there anyway, fine. And now you're going to rule for his friend, to allow his friend to be released? That's crazy. But she did it with no concern about the conflict that it may show. And she did it again. In the second case she had where, they were trying to get President Trump's records to get them to the Senate, to the Congressional Screening Committee so they can review his records. He appealed and went straight to the appellate division. He just tried to bypass everybody and go straight to the appellate division. Who got the case? One of his appointees. What did the appointee do? President Trump is right. You cannot get his records. Sorry. So they're not being bashful about this. They really are not. So he's literally putting 54 appellate judges in positions that if the voting goes against him in November, the federal judges will be the ones to decide whether or not it's right or wrong. Now, it's almost like he's stacking the deck. And so that's a problem. And people should know that. And that's not something that people are hearing about. And I haven't heard it yet at all. And it sounds like it's just basic common sense to me. Listen, voters, he's put in 200 federal judges. He's put in more appellate federal judges than anyone in recent history. And he's saying that the voting is going to happen improperly. So he's going to appeal to the federal judges that he put in himself. Okay, come on now. This is not even a hard decision to make. And I think voters need to know that. And if they start hearing more and more of it like that, I think they'll start realizing at some point that, this is about power grabs and fraud rather than about being presidential or elected officials representing the electorate. That's what this is really about. Any other questions? Oh, but and there's something else I wanted to say too. And when I keep saying it's all about the judges, and I'm sorry if I keep saying that, but I've been my mantra for, I guess, 4 or 5 years now. And I respect them for this. I really do. I respect the Republican Party for doing it this way. I think it's smart. I think they're strategic. I really respect them for it. But they've been planting these seeds for judges for decades. For decades, and we didn't even catch it until just now. And if you have to really look at it and see it. And again, I'm not a serious constitutional scholar, but I'm just really interested in how this is really playing out. And so when President Trump, I said again, when Mr. Trump became president, he pretty much said that the federal judges will be coming from the Federalist Society recommendations. Now, a lot of people have no idea what the Federalist Society even is. Hey, we just don't know. You hear the word, you think of some mysterious society of people wearing black masks in a basement somewhere in some dungeon. No, the Federalist Society is a group or organization of conservative lawyers and judges, etc., who have been around for a long time, and they are the ones that have been spoon feeding the president the names of people to become judges. Now, literally, and I mean, sounds like a movie, but literally the Federalist Society has been training and grooming law students and people in college to go to law school, to then study, learn about the conservative methods and strategies, and they've been picking them. Kids join the Federalist Society in high school and in college, and then they get followed through law school. And then the Federalist Society, once they leave law school, the Federalist Society starts reaching out to those persons who they think will be good judges and represent conservative, sometimes ultra-conservative views on the bench. Now, people think, oh, this is some conspiracy theory. Of the almost 200 judges appointed by Mr. Trump, I would say 97% of them come from the Federalist Society. All but 8 come from the Federalist Society. All of them but 8. So, President Trump is actually doing the bidding when it comes to federal judges of the Federalist Society. And they have pretty much spoon-fed him which names he should choose from. Like, they will give him a list. Like, here's 7 people. Here's who we think you should choose from. This person, this person, this person, this person, this person. President Trump will choose from that list or choose the whole list and give those to the Senate. The Senate will then say where they come from. They come from the Federalist Society. Okay. Conservative, ultra-conservative. Okay, fine. Approved. And that's that. And so, again, these are things that people need to be aware of when we're talking about who you're voting for, because again, the federal judges are going to be there for life. And they are the ones that got rid of discrimination. They are the ones that got rid of segregation. They are the ones that said abortion should be legal. They are the ones that can say abortion should be illegal. They are the ones that can say, you know what, that whole desegregation thing, probably was best that we keep y'all apart. And I know that sounds really strange, like there's no way they can do that. I mean, I beg to differ. I mean,
So
there's some. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So why are we not hearing about this? I mean,
I think we're not hearing about it because I don't think. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know why we're not hearing about it enough. We're not hearing it loud enough. Because when I told some people about that who 4 years ago were telling me, well, X, I'm not voting for Ms. Clinton because yada yada. So I'm just going to not vote because it's just one man. He can't make a difference in my life. And then 2 years later, I talked to the same person and goes, okay, I was wrong. I said, well, I told you that 2 years ago. And you risk I told you that. And, when for the Black and brown community, when I bring up stop and frisk, that automatically brings it home. They're like, whoa. I'm like, yes, sir, son. If that was another judge, that judge could have easily interpreted that law the opposite way and said stop and frisk is fine. It's not really a restriction. They're doing the best they can do is stopping crime. And that would have been that. And then stop and frisk would still be going on. One federal judge made the difference in the halting of the unlawful stopping and frisking of almost 200,000 Black and brown people per year. One judge. Another judge could have ruled the absolute opposite, and that would have been that. So that's why these judges make a difference. It's only going to take one judge to decide that states can do what they want regarding abortion. It's only going to take one judge to decide about immigration. It's only going to take one judge to decide about voting rights. And when they start talking about restrictive covenants, then people really going to get upset. And what I mean by that is that when a federal judge says, you know what, it's okay for a particular community to have restrictive covenants in their area, which means they can decide who moves into their area, or they can decide who buys a house from them, or they can discriminate, things like that. It's only going to take one or two federal judges to say that's okay. And then that's going to be the law. That's going to be it. It's only going to take one or two federal judges to say, well, you know what? If that shop wants to discriminate against you because you're gay, they can do that. You're gonna be like, whoa. It only takes one federal judge, and once that federal judge says it, particularly if they're on the appellate division, it's the law now. It's only gonna take one federal judge to say, you know what? That clerk does not have to give you a license to marry if you're of different races. If you're Black and you're white, she may not agree with that. She's fine to say that can't happen. Because in that particular state, they think Black and white people shouldn't marry. Okay, guess what? That's it. Or, Black people can't adopt white kids, or white people can't adopt black kids. It only takes a federal judge to interpret the law to say that the states have the right to do that, to restrict that. And then what's going to happen? That's going to be the law. And that's going to affect each one of you all, of us individually. So, I mean, it's as simple as that to me. And now why it's not being said loud enough, I mean, with a bullhorn it should be being said, I don't know. Because in my opinion, again, this president has not done anything for the Republican Party except give them the judges they want. And that's all they care about. Really, that's all they really care about, is the judges. Sorry.
Sounds very strategic.
I mean, if it was me, I would do, that's why I'm not mad at it. If it was me, I would do the same thing. I mean, if I have the power to appoint someone, I'm not going to appoint someone. If I believe in a woman's right to choose, I'm not going to appoint a federal judge who says they believe that a woman should not have a right to choose. I wouldn't do that, because that wouldn't make sense, because that person does not believe what I believe, so I'm not doing that. And I'm especially not doing that for someone who's going to have a job for life. I'm not doing that. So the opposite must be true. If I believe that, I believe in a woman's right to choose, then I'm going to appoint someone who I think believes in the same thing. So you need to ask yourself that about your president who you elected. That person believes in X, Y, Z. Okay. You really think they're going to appoint a person who can change the laws for the rest of their life, appoint someone that believes opposite to what they believe? Absolutely not.
Of course.
This doesn't make any sense.
Nobody would do that.
No, nobody would do that. And that would be crazy.
Well, this has been some very good information, and hopefully, everybody's listening. This election is extremely important. We need to know as much information as possible, before November. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. And whoever's listening, I just really want to close by saying that, elections like these are life-changing, and not just life-changing for you, but life-changing for your children, my children, your grandchildren, and my grandchildren. And as unselfishly as that is, I think we should think unselfishly. I think we should be concerned about what's happening later on. These federal judges do specifically and quickly impact our daily lives. But more importantly, they're going to impact the lives of my sons and the lives of my sons' children, if they have any. And that's what's really important, because again, the federal judges outlive in their jobs, outlive and outlast every 4-year cycle or 6-year cycle of election, or 2-year election cycle. They're beyond that. And other people are playing chess and we're playing checkers. They're thinking about 20, 30 years from now, and we're not. And we need to start thinking about it like that. So make sure you go out there and vote for someone that, with the knowledge that they are going to appoint federal judges that are going to make laws that's going to affect you individually and right now. No matter what anyone says, that's going to happen. That's the purpose of this whole election. And that's the reason why they really want that man back in there, because there's a lot more open federal judgeship seats to be filled, like about 103, I think. And I guarantee you they will be filled by January if he wins that election. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. Have an enjoyable day and be safe.
Thanks. This message has been brought to you by the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project.